part of the second grade lesson. For a long time, the Earth's ocean, there were more trilobites than any other kind of life. But then a brand new kind of ocean animal arrived. This animal had a long body but no legs. Its skin was hard and scaly. It swam around the ocean easily because it had little flaps that helped it to steer and turn and stop. Now these flaps are called fins. This animal could breathe underwater through another set of flaps called gills. This animal was the Earth's first fish. Fish became very plentiful, so plentiful that people call this time the Age of Fishes. Doesn't that sound funny? Fish still exist in Earth's oceans, lakes, and rivers, and some fish today still look similar to ancient fish. Earth's first fish were special because they were the first animals to have their bones, their hardest parts, inside their bodies. The collection of bones inside an animal is called a skeleton. A skeleton is a sort of frame that an animal is built upon, the way a house is built upon a frame. There is another reason that the Earth's ancient fish were special. Fish were the first animals to have a long bone along their backs. Nowadays, this is called a backbone. And all animals with backbones are called vertebrates.
So you guys have a backbone too. So that is, it runs all the way from kind of the base of your skull all the way down your back, right?
And you have a cord along it that attaches to your brain, and it sends all your information from your arms, like touch and everything, to that cord that's on your backbone too.
Yeah, so all the way down your vertebrae, so your vertebrae are stacked on top of each other. You can actually, if you guys feel your back, you can feel different sections of your backbone, right?
Does it feel bumpy?
And if you have like a curve in it, it's called scoliosis.
Yeah. Okay.
My cousin had scoliosis.
While the Earth's first ocean filled with more and more fish, something new and exciting was happening on the land of the Earth. Some of the algae that lived in the shallow parts of the ocean began to grow on the land. Perhaps the water level in one part of the ocean went down and left some algae in moist sand. This algae attached itself to the moist land and in time turned into plants that could live outside the water. On land, these plants gathered nourishment from sunlight and moisture from the sand. These plants were the very first life on the Earth's land. So even before animals were on land, what was on land? Algae turned into plants.
And these plants, I can tell, look a little different than the plants that we have today, right?
So as Mrs. Reedy's walking it around, I'm going to read about it. Many kinds of plants with different shapes and sizes began to develop on Earth. Today, there are still tiny plants that we can hardly see, and enormous plants like trees. After plants started to develop on Earth, a very busy and exciting time started. New life sprang up everywhere on Earth. Another new type of life appeared on the land. This time, it wasn't a plant, but an animal. This animal was very small, and it laid eggs. It had an exoskeleton, like the trilobites had. A head, a middle part called a thorax, a rear part called an abdomen, and 3 pairs of legs. Are you picturing it?
Yeah.
On its head, it had a big bulgy eyes, and 2 small thread-like parts that stuck out. The animal that these 2 small thread-like parts to sense things. These small thread-like parts are called antennae or antennas. This animal had no backbone, and all animals that have no backbone are now called invertebrates. So the opposite of vertebrates are invertebrates with no backbone. Many, many varieties of this animal appeared. Some crept, some crawled. Others had 2 pairs of wings, allowing them to fly in the air. These were the first animals on Earth to fly. These amazing animals, which appeared on Earth just after land plants, are called insects. Today, there are more insects in the world than any kind of animal. Did you know that? There are more insects in this world than any other type of animal. Around the time that insects appeared, another type of land animal developed, a very odd animal. In those days, there was a certain fish that had huge fins. Over a very long time, the huge fins turned into short legs. One day, some of the fish used their short legs to move from the ocean onto the land. On land, these fish with legs found delicious food to eat. Insects. From then on, these fish with legs had a double life. Sometimes they lived in the ocean, like fish. Sometimes they lived on land, like animals. Nowadays, this combination of land and water animal is called an amphibian.
All right, so I'll walk around with this because these amphibians don't look like amphibians that we have today. And you'll see the label says prehistoric amphibians, so I'll come around and show this to you because you'll find it really interesting.
An amphibian that we have today is a turtle. That's one of them.
So see the differences that you see of
And a
now
frog.
the amphibians to these prehistoric
And a
amphibians.
lizard.
Over a long time, many kinds and sizes of amphibians developed. Some were as big as someone 6 years old. Amphibians had smooth, moist skin, and through this skin they breathed and took in water. They could also breathe through gills when they were underwater. Amphibians were special because they were the first vertebrates, or animals with backbones, to live on land. Today there are many amphibians, such as frogs, toads, and salamanders. At the time the insects and amphibians appeared on Earth, other events were also happening. For example, now the land had broken into 2 giant pieces called continents. These continents slowly drifted along in a giant ocean. Then one day,
They
crash! The continents bumped into one another. They bumped with such a great force that they got stuck together and formed one supercontinent called Pangea. Where the 2 continents stuck together, the land crumpled up and created a long row of mountains called a mountain range. This first mountain range still exists in today's world and is located in Russia. And we're going to stop right there for some discussion, and then we will go on to the third part of the second grade lesson.
So this is